Hello everyone, can you hear me clearly? Alright then, we are starting now and alright, so hello everyone, and this is a complimentary session from KnowBigData on Java basics. So we will try to cover it really fast and we will just cover the basics of Java. So if you are acquainted with computer basics, then this course is good for you. Uh, and we shall be going a little at a faster pace because we have planned it for at most 6 hours. We could stretch it to 8 hours, but nothing beyond it. All right. So I believe that we should be able to finish it in 6 hours. All right. So about no big data, probably all of you are aware about no big data. And then about myself, I have been doing a lot of Java programming. The product which I built at my own startup was in Java, and a lot of stuff at Amazon which we did was in Java, where we migrated the Perl based website also. And at DShaw, I worked at Java and C Sharp. So most of my career has been in Java, around you can say spread around 8 years into Java. All right, so today we are going to first there are it's a 2 hour session. All right, we will cover the basics of Java today, and then we'll cover a little bit more about advanced things tomorrow and day after. All right. We'll take a break for 5 minutes at around 9:30 and then we'll carry on. All right. So what exactly is Java? Java is a programming language. It's a little high level programming language because unlike C, most of the memory management is done by the compiler and the virtual machine for you. In C, you have to delocate an array, you have to do a lot of things in order to manage the memory in machine. So that is why Java is called the high level programming language. Second is that it was invented at Sun Microsystem in 1995. Although Sun Microsystem is now part of Oracle, and at that time in 1995, at that time the overall objective of Java was the mobility. Okay, a language for the internet and language for almost all operating system, right? And Java runs on almost every platform, and that is the reason why Java is chosen as one of the programming languages uh, when it comes to a very wide variety of devices. So it runs on Windows, Linux, Mac, Unix, and it runs on almost every architecture. So starting with Motorola, Intel, AMD, every processor it runs on. And Java has been running on mobile devices since the day mobile devices came into play. And so that is about Java in general. As a programming language, it is completely object oriented and it is portable in the sense that if you compile on a machine which is on built on, say I compile my code on Unix, and then I take the program from my Unix machine to, say, our cloud labs, which is on running on Linux Ubuntu. So it will run fine, as well as the same compiled code will run fine on a Windows machine, which means you compile it once and run it everywhere, and that's what is Java about. Yes, the session is being recorded and will be shared with all of you. Okay, so all of you just focus on asking the right question, and I mean asking the question. Every question is right. All right. So the slides as well as the session will be shared with all of you. Okay. All right. So you have, so it's quite portable and is compiled, which makes it robust in the sense that most of the errors are caught at the compilation time itself. Okay, lots of syntax errors all are caught at the compile time itself. Only the runtime errors are something which need to be tackled, and for which there are various kinds of unit test cases you need to build. Okay, so that's the biggest difference between compiled language and an interpreted language, where, like in case of Python or in case of Perl, you cannot catch even the syntax errors during the while on your development machine. While it goes in production, it might give you an error. So there's a big difference between a compiled language and an interpreted language. Okay. Now it's multi-threaded, which means a single process can run two things in parallel. And language have a good support for that. Language had a good support for running two things parallelly. So if you want to watch something, so if you are doing a computation in background and you want to display a progress bar, both the things can be done in fairly fast manner, right? The other reason why, so say for example your program is reading data from disk as well as doing some computation. So if you have multi-threading in place, as in you are doing reading data from the disk as well as doing some computation on the data, so both the things can be done together, because while you are reading the data, your processor is fairly free, right? And at that time, while the data is being read, you're waiting for the disk to read the data and give it to you. In the duration, you can do the computation. So both the things could be done parallelly, and that is the magic of multi-threading. Okay, there's a thin line of difference between multi-threading and multi-processes. So Java is fairly multi-threaded. It allows two threads to communicate with each other in a very safe manner. It has all the syntax in place. Java was designed for high performance and for the cases of distributed programming. All right. Also, you can also think of Java as somewhat interpreted, in the sense that when you compile a programming language, a next set of byte codes are generated, which are basically instructions in a very lower level programming language, which is Java byte codes. So when the byte codes are run by JVM basically interprets the byte code and executes it. So you have got Java source code here, as you can see in this diagram. You have got Java source code, and then that Java source code goes to the compiler. Compiler takes the Java source code and generates something called bytecodes. Bytecodes is those dot class files that it generates, and those bytecodes you ship it to your server or some other place wherever you want to run it. And at that place, you need to have JVM, Java Virtual Machine, which takes this bytecode and run it and executes it. So bytecodes, you must have seen .jar files. That is basically a bunch of class files uh, in the zipped format, and that essentially contains the bytecode. All right. So this is the smallest possible introduction I can give it to you. So any questions here? Yes. So no questions? Good. All right. So to get quickly started, I would strongly recommend to download Eclipse. And so to go to this URL, open it. Under that you will see 32-bit version and 64-bit version for your OS. Download that one, unzip it and run it, and you will get something of this sort. Okay, I've already downloaded and I have unzipped it here. When you run it, you will get something of this sort. So it'll ask you for a workspace. Let's say I'll say a new workspace for the session. Workspace is where it will be storing your information about projects and what to display here or there. All the configuration specific to you will be stored in Workspace. Now, this is about Eclipse. Okay, so you can close this. You can close this. Here you will have an empty, everything absolutely empty. And then you go to new and then say Java project. Give it some name. Say, you can say tutorial and finish it. Okay, so now is it okay? All right, all right. So you can download Eclipse from here, and once downloaded, I created the project, and under the project, you just basically create a new class, and let's call it Hello World. Okay, and we enter. Yeah. So so everything in Java is a class. If you write a method called main, it will automatically complete it for you. And you see, under a class hello world, so the general structure of the program is, forget this line. This line basically says that it will stay in a folder called tutorial, and then you have a class name hello world. The file name of this class should be same as hello world and hello world Java. This is the file name, and under that you create a function called main. Anything you write in the main gets executed when you run the program. So to print to the output screen, you can simply say hello, comma, world. All right. So if you run it, you will get the output here. So this is the shortest way to get up and running with your Java work. All right. Now, if you want to see how does it happen from the command line, let's find out where it has created. It has created my program in this folder. You can see that folder. I say right click on the file, say properties, and under location, it will tell you that this is where it has created the files. Okay. Now, right. So Sushant, you don't have to worry. You don't have to try to do it parallelly because anyway your machine is loaded with GoToMeeting, and when you run Eclipse, it might run out of memory. So I would say that right now just focus on it. The video is going to be shared with you anyway. You can rewind and watch it again. All right. So I changed to that directory, and now you can see there is this file called helloworld.java. Okay. Now if you see helloworld.java contains this. Okay. So this is where Eclipse has created the directory. So under documents, it creates a workspace and then it created the project name. And under that src is the folder it has created, then a namespace, and that's where your file is. Now to compile a Java code from command line, you need to do Java C and it's compiled. Now if you do ls here, you'll see one more file with the same name but different surname, and we can say without dot class, and there we go. So it says that okay, no class definition found. Okay, I'll have to run it like, all right. So you can run it like that, and by default don't create any kind of a namespace over here. Right now it has created the namespace. So dot class file is created in the same folder where you did the Java C. And in case of Eclipse, it does it in the different folder. If you go up one level, you will see a bin folder parallel to source. So if you do a find, you will see the the bin folder is what is created by Eclipse for you. Okay, and you can see this is the folder structure which is created by you. I mean when you created a new project in Eclipse. All right. So under the bin folder, you will find a parallel structure as src containing the output. And why is it happening? Because we have said here build automatically. So every time you make a change, it is going to update your bin folder with new set of classes. So it's basically running Java C again and again on your files. All right. So that was the fastest I could demo how to run. So the way I ran it is using this one. You could also say this and you get the output. All right. So that's how you run your Java code. So let me shut down one of the Eclipse. So I have my existing projects in which I have another workspace and it's running well. Okay. So all right, so we were able to successfully run a Hello World program very, very quickly. Is everybody okay with this? All I did was downloaded Eclipse, closed the default window splash screen, whatever you call it. Then I said new project, and after that I created a new file and said that I'm trying to create a file. And then inside that file, I wrote a main method, and then I ran it. Okay, and that's all. All right. Same thing what you do, and also note that when we did here Java C, when we did Java C over here, okay, when it comes to multiple folders, the command line is not really very useful. And I'm forgetting to put Java C again and again. So when I did Java C, basically Java C is available on this machine, and Java C comes from something called JDK, Java Development Kit. So before you start to try to use the command line, you will have to download JDK from Oracle's website. And also, in case you don't prefer to use something like Eclipse, you might like to have a good text editor. In case of Sublime, Sublime or Emacs. Okay, so, so either of the three, if you are on Windows, Notepad++ does a very good job, or maybe TextEdit, or Sublime or Emacs is good for Linux or Unix or Mac. So those are the few quick things, and so all you need to do in case you don't have any Eclipse or any other IDE like IntelliJ, all you need to do is create hello-world.java in this editor, save it in a folder. From the command prompt, go to that folder where you have created the file, and then do java c your file name.java, and then this your file name.class will be created. Afterwards, you can run that class by using java and your file name, whatever it is, without the surname. Okay, and you'll get the results. All right. Okay, so okay, so this is how you run a Java program. Okay, so the basic syntax of Java is it's case sensitive. Okay, it's case sensitive. In case you do something else like change it to capital, it'll give an error. Okay, it says that main method not found. Okay, so it's very case sensitive, and every file is generally at least one class. Okay, the file name of the class should be the same as the public class listed in that file. Okay, so you can think of every file contains at least one class, at least one statement which says public class some class name. Okay, it looks like a redundant glue code. This one, if you see the damn example here, this looks like a redundant glue code, but that's what it is. Okay, so if you have 20 classes and all of them need to be public, then you will have 20 separate files. All right, and every class can have methods just like public void my method name, and there is a special method that is run automatically when you type java, run it via java. It's called public static void main. All right, so let me just create hello world. I say hello world. I'm trying to do it again because here, and there are a lot of shortcuts which Eclipse gives you like sysout. So once you get little familiar, you will be very comfortable using this IDE. And all right. Also, at any moment of time, you can do some sort of debugging. If you want to run things stepwise, you can simply say debug button here, and it will say open debug perspective, and then comes the huge lot of windows, and that's where you start debugging stepwise. All right. So if you want to check what is in the arguments, you can just take the cursor there, and that's how it is. All right. So basically, Eclipse is a pretty good ID. Although, if you are a little advanced user, you can do the debugging, stepwise debugging from the command line as well. All right. And why do we do the debugging? If you have a problem in your program and you are not able to figure out what exactly is going wrong, you might want to walk through the program step by step, executing each step one at a time, and stopping there, examining things, then moving to next step, and then again examining, and so on. So all the runtime problems you can debug. If there are runtime, you are not getting desired output, although the syntax is correct, your program is running. In those cases, you might, most of the time you like to print error message here and there, and then you figure out, but sometimes it gets difficult to debug, to find out the problem. In those cases, you want to do the stepwise debugging. Okay. And all right, so this is something which I have not covered, so I'll just write it here. All right, any questions for me till this point? No. Good. So we have all seen how does a generally a program looks like. Okay, so this is how the general program looks like. There is something called public class hello world. This is how you define the class from here till here. Curly braces mark the beginning of something and the end of the same thing. So uh, uh, by default, this is what the empty class is. Okay, public class and then the name of the class. The class as well as public both are case sensitive. They have to be in a small case. Then you have something like you define a method, and method has got little more things. You have got these keyword over here, then method name, and specifically this one is like hardcore. You just have to copy paste it everywhere. And again, the method starts with the same curly brackets, and till the curly braces. This is whole method. Now, under this method, this is one of the statements. It says that print, call the system.out.println method, print everything which is between the double quotes till here. So this method is basically, its arguments start with round brackets till the round bracket, and each statement have to end with semicolon. All right. So this is how a typical Java program looks like. Now, so here we haven't defined any of the identifier per se, but these are all identifier: the name of the class, name of the method, name of the method. Okay. Now, method identifier is something which is used in case of class name, method name, or variable name. Okay, and so each class name, method name, and variable name have some foundation, some sort of constraints that you cannot keep all. Okay. So public class, what does it signify? Okay. So as per the Java syntax, every file has to have a class. Every file is basically a class. So for now, I would just my quick advice to you is just assume that whenever you are writing code, you will have to start with creating a class and then start working with it. So public class and the class name is basically signifies that you are creating a fresh class. Okay, you are creating a new class, and uh, all the details of the class are mentioned between the curly brackets. All right. I'm answering to Abhishek Pandey's question, who says that public class, what does it signify? Now, so the class name, method name, variable names are all called identifiers. An identifier needs to begin with a letter. It cannot begin with a number, it cannot begin with dot, and it cannot begin with tilde. Okay. So or it can begin with a dollar or underscore. Okay. So only these kind of three, it can only start with any of the three letters. So it can either be a capital letter, small letter, it can be a dollar, it can be underscore, it can begin with any of this, while it may contain numbers. All right, it may contain numbers, but it cannot begin with numbers. Other restrictions with respect to naming a method or a class when you are creating a new file name for your hello world, there are few more restrictions. You cannot keep it with a keyword name. We'll talk about keywords. We'll talk about keywords, and all the names are case sensitive. All the names are case sensitive. That is the case probably with every programming language. The method name, variable name, or the class name all are case sensitive. All right. And this is how it looks like. So the things which are underlined in this in this example, hello world, main, string, args, and system out, println, all of these are identifiers. Okay. Now the valid examples of identifier is you can keep a variable's name as age. You can even have something like dollar salary as a valid variable name, and underscore value as a very valid variable name. And you can even have something of this sort. Okay. What is invalid is 123 ABC, because it's starting with number. It cannot start with number, though it can contain a number. So you can even here is one. Okay, these are all valid, while minus salary is wrong, or saying hash salary is wrong. Even the tilde salary is wrong. Okay, and exclamation is wrong. So these are the invalid variable names. Okay, sounds good to you? So the variable name can contain a number, a dollar, an underscore, or a letter? Okay, so a quick question to all of you. Out of A to J, what are the invalid identifiers? A is two tuple, B is so many underscores, underscore, 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 and then X. And then you have only underscores. And then you have $3, then you have $2, then you have Sandeep, capital Sandeep, and then SA and small. Okay. What are the invalid identifiers? So Seema says A, H, I. Okay. Srivasant is also saying the same. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let me go back to the previous screen. So can have, okay, is composed of a letter and a number. Must not begin with a number. Okay, now it would make more sense to all of you, right? Now, okay, let me ask again. Based on this says that an identifier can be a letter, or it can be dollar, or it can be underscore, or it can be number, but it cannot begin with number out of all these valid names. All right. Now, okay. So please answer this question. So out of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, J, not K, which are the invalid identifiers? Chandra says A and H. So as per you, San.Giri is invalid. Why, Sushant? Because if you see, dollar is a valid uh, variable. Okay, so A is invalid as per everybody. H is also invalid. Good. All right. So far, I think Srivasant and Seema are correct so far. An identifier cannot have dot. Yes, that is right. This is correct. This is by mistake written that way. This is correct. Okay. All right. You can try running this program. Let's run it. Let's run it, and then I'm copy pasting it and running it. Now you can see that I said $x equals 10, dollar 10, dollar 220, and then I sum and underscore underscore 12, and then I summed it up and printed it. Okay, I can say int value equals this, and then here goes my value. Okay, right. So Seema, if you look at the same one here, let me make it clear now. So system is a keyword, out is a keyword, println is a keyword. Sorry, system is an identifier, out is an identifier, and println is an identifier. Okay, it's just the way we are calling it. It's namespace dot namespace and then method name. Namespace, object name, method name. It's that way. Okay. So individually, these are valid identifier. Very good point. Very good point. So hope you got the answer. So system.out.println is not a single identifier. It is composed of three identifiers. Okay. So we are calling it namespace, as in package name. We'll talk about these things later. All right. Now moving on. All right. So whenever we are defining something in Java, we generally, other than declaring a variable, so let me go back to the example which I gave. Okay. So whenever you are learning a programming language, there's a lot of back and forth you have to go. So here, this particular line says that there is a variable with the name underscore underscore whose value will become 12 because of this statement. Okay. Because of this statement says underscore underscore equals to 12. And because of this statement, the value of underscore underscore will become 12 and the data type of underscore underscore is integer. Okay, same is the case with others. All of these are integer. Integer is something which can hold a number which is not decimal but can be negative. All right. Now, so we could put various kinds of modifiers on various kinds of things. There is a, modifier here, a modifier here, a modifier here, a modifier here. It says that this particular class which we are creating, when we are, this is something which I was telling that don't think about it right now. So we basically were creating a class called hello world, which has one method, static method called main. It's a static. We'll talk about the significance later. But these all are something called modifiers. Okay. These public, private, protected, these are the access modifiers. And there are other modifiers such as final and abstract. Okay. These are the keywords, although it doesn't make much sense to look at these slides right now, but just have a quick look so that in case you're getting error while typing a code, in case you try to say, let me just pick up first keyword. First keyword is abstract. If I say int abstract equals 10, it will immediately give me an error saying that abstract is a. Okay. So it gets confused when you try to create a variable name, or you can try to do that, and it'll try to say you that syntax error abstract invalid variable declared. Okay. So any of these keywords cannot be your valid identifier names. Okay. So like with every programming language, you need to have comments in the code. By the way of comments, people generally do two things. First, they make they basically, most of the good developers, while they're building something, they write down the comments before actually implementing anything, and those comments work as the reference points for them. All right. As well as when the code gets complex, you generally write comments on top of that code. Okay. Also, try to keep the comments as crisp as possible, because in case code is wrong, you get compile time error or runtime error. In case your your documentation or your comments are wrong, then nobody catches it. All right. So in generally lots of code, when you read lots of code, you will realize that most of the comments are fairly obsolete because code changed but comment didn't. So you keep your comments really crisp. Anyway, that's about what kind of comments you should keep. And here the comments are basically either multi-line. These are multi-line comments. These stars don't need to be there. They are just kept for the beautification. And in case you want to comment something here, you can simply say star and you can say hi, how are you? And this is not required. It's just for the beautification reasons. Okay. All right. And other things like if you put these kind of comments, those are for documentation but not related to Java. So you can write multi-line comments. A comment starts with this and a comment ends with this. Okay. So a comment is valid even if it comes between the statements, just like this is still valid. Okay. And it will give you the results still. And you cannot nest comments. And these are single line comments. Single line comments are good when you are generally commenting out piece of code or you just want to write couple of words rather than documenting something. Okay. So generally what happens is when you're traversing around the code, you generally comment out things. Okay. So single line comments are those for just commenting out one line. If you are commenting out a big text or a big block of something, you use the multi-line ones. A multi-line one starts with this, ends with this, and a single line one starts with slash slash. Okay, and is for the full line. All right, so that's about the comments. Now, there are data types in Java, primitive types, and primitive types are of byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, char. Except for byte and short, you will be using everything else. You will be using integer. So if your number is smaller, which is between minus 2, 2 to the power 31 to positive 2 to the power 31, then integer is generally fine. But when you are talking about big data, like our cases, you would like to go for long instead of using int. Okay, you would prefer to use long. And similarly, in case you're storing a small lower precision number, then you use a float, but if your number is bigger, then you use double. I mean, if you want to store big decimal number, you use double. A smaller decimal number, you use float. Okay. So when you are little on optimization side, you would prefer to go with the float. But in case you want to be on the safer side, you would like to go for double. And for true and false kind of values, you generally use boolean as the data type. Okay, so you could say here, you could say eh, you could say long x equals 10l, and then you could sum it up. Okay, and you could have a little too bigger number. Okay, And if you want to have something like a boolean number, you can say boolean my flag equals true. Okay, true. So if you print the boolean number here, you say sysout and my flag. So I created a variable called my flag, which has the data type of boolean, and I'm assigning a value true. Okay, and when I print it, it will be true. Okay, and if I want to say my flag plus my flag, it will give an error most likely. Yeah. So what can I do about it? I can say here 1 equals to 2. Okay, 1 equals as in is 1 equals to 2. If this condition returns false, so I'm jumping a little bit ahead. Don't panic in case. Okay, so you can see that the flag's value is false. All right. So those are the basic data types. The shortest out of all is byte, which is only 8-bit, which can only store a number between -128 to 127. All right. And when you are dealing with characters, when you're dealing with huge string, each individual character is stored in char. It's basically 16-bit Unicode character. So these are primitive types. All right. And when we are talking about the strings like character, we basically represent that using this way. We say char A equals to single quote A. All right. So when we say here, we say my char is this, and I can print it like this. Okay. I can say print my the variable which I just created. So you can see the output contains capital A. Is this output window sufficiently visible? I can't change its font size. It has the color, but it doesn't have the size. Okay. So fine. So this is how you define a single character, as well as if you are you want to define a number in octal, you can define it using O, and this was okay. Let's just see what happens here. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 2, 4 in octal representation, it's actually 100. Okay, so if you start something with 0, it becomes octal, and in case you are talking about hexadecimal number, you can place it 0x in before the number, and it will become a hexadecimal representation. Okay, and when you are dealing with the strings, you generally say when you say string my name equals double quote start, double quote ended, and let's say Abhishek Pandey. All right, so and then you say my name. So this is how you define the literals. Okay, these are called string literals. All right, in case you want to put a new line in between, you'll put /n in between and then run it, and there you see in the output Abhishek new line and then Pandey. In case you want to put a tab in between somewhere, okay, so you get something of this sort. All right, and there are multiple kind of things possible over there. In case you want to print in output /t, you comment out the slash with another slash like this, and in the output, instead of seeing a tab, now you will see a /t. Okay, and you can keep on doing it how many ever you want. Okay, so if you want to print out double quote, you can put double quote like this, and in the output double quote will be created. Okay, so anything, so these are the things which have a special meaning: slash n, slash r, slash f, slash b, slash s, slash t, and double quote, single quote, and all of this have a special value. If in case you want these to be commented out, you just press, you just put slash before slashes, and that will lose the significance. Okay, is this clear to all of you? So when you are defining a string, you can define it this way. Did I confuse you? Good, good. Okay, let me try what Sushant is saying, and I say this. Okay, I say Sushant. So hold on. What are we talking? So whenever we want to print the hexadecimal number, you generally put something a hexadecimal. Say A10. What is a Unicode? Invalid Unicode. Actually, I haven't used it yet, though. Never mind. So no. Okay, let me find out how to use the Unicode. I haven't used slash u yet. Okay, but you can say slash d and 123. This is strange. Invalid escape sequence. So slash d is invalid. Okay, let me try to do this way. String name equals, doesn't allow me to do all of that. Okay, anyway, I'll just find it out later on. Don't worry about this. All right. So basically, whenever you want to comment out something, let's say here we were happy that we printed A. Okay. Let's say we want to print single quote in A. Let's call it single quote. What will you do here? Instead of A, we want to keep single quote. Anyone? Quickly. Instead of A, we want to assign single quote. Yes? Good. So we say like this. Okay, because if you put single quote, you'll get confused that whether you are trying to close the open single quote or you want to. Okay, so this way you can print out the single quote. Where did my single quote go? Okay, it did not go anywhere. It's here. Yeah, you can see the single quote in the output. Good. So this is how you do basically when you are defining a string, and whatever form of delimiter you are choosing. Here in case of Java, to define the string, you start a string with double quote, end it with double quote. In case you have to print something else, if you want to print double quote in between you have to type slash and then put double quote. Okay. Similarly, a character is defined something like starting with single quote, ending with single quote. In case you want to put a single quote in between, you have to say slash single quote. Okay. And in case anybody quickly, so I want to print only a single quote, only a slash. Okay, I said forward slash. So what should I type here? Anyone else? Yeah. So this is valid. All right. So this way you're able to define a character which contains a forward slash. Perfect. All right. So trust me, this is going to confuse you quite much. These slashes were going to confuse you quite much when we deal with it in future. And in case you are defining regular expression, then this will become doubly complex. Okay. So try to do all of this. Try to print all kind of characters in the output, and then you will understand the role of it. Okay. Sounds good to you? So everyone, are you with me? All right, great, great. Chandra, Eric. All right, no worries. Moving on. So we talked about primitives. We talked about int x, int y, right? We talked about primitives, integer, float, double, and string, not string, characters, right? But sometimes, I mean, almost all the time, these primitives are not sufficient to represent your values, right? For example, a string is composed of lot of characters, right? And a string is not primitively available. So you need to create the people need to create the complex objects. For example, you might want to multiply a complex number with another. You might have to define various kinds of other objects. These are just numbers. If you want to define something like a chair, which has some operation, so these basic primitive types provide you various kinds of simple operation. You can add it with another, you can multiply it with another, you can do other smaller operation. But in case you have larger things to represent, what do? In those cases, you define things like you create classes for them and then use it. Okay. So syntax for using a class is exactly like the way we did it for primitives, only there are minor differences here and there. Now, for example, in int x, int is the data type and x is the variable. Variable is what? Variable is a storage where you put some value. Its value keeps on changing with time, right? So, and we have put a value called 1, 2, 3, right? Now, in case of a complex object, imagine that you created a new kind of a data type complex object. You are defining a variable of this data type, complex integer, and then you're defining the variable called complex. And to this variable, you are assigning a new big complex integer. Okay, you are defining this is how you create a new value and assign it to this object. Okay, and it should be something like, say, 10 and 30. Okay, so you created a composite object using primitive values, and that's what is all about the object oriented programming. Okay, so we took the variable and data type to a next level called object and its data type called class. Okay, and each object, say complex in this example, complex int in this example, has got has got states and behaviors. The behaviors, as in, on each object we can each object has some sort of a state, meaning it can be uh, state as in when you change some value in the object, it will take some state. Just like a variable, when we assign something, that is its state. Okay, so the thin line difference between class and object, although it's a huge difference, but people who are coming from JavaScript background and other places, they won't find much of a difference between class and object. In case of Java, the difference is too much. Okay, the difference is the difference between a class and object is class is like a blueprint and object is the real instance of it. So is dog is a class, but my my Tommy, who is my pet, is an object of that particular class, right? The way integer is a class and x is a kind of integer who has got a state and behavior. All right, so that is the difference between an object and a class. All right, now have a look at the class. How does a class look like? The class typically looks like this. So let me create a new class here and let me give it a name called Dog. Okay, and under this, okay, so under this, we first have created something called a class, then we created put its name, and from here till the end is the definition of the class. First one is called constructor, as meaning whenever people try to create an object of type dog, what you need to do, these are the things to be done here. So constructor, okay, and then these are the attribute of this class. These are the attributes which are of primitive type, and this is the behavior. So when we create an object called dog, we'll be doing it this way. We will say that dog my pet equals to new dog with the new name, saying we have got a dog whose name is this. Okay, so when you are going to use it in real life, you are going to say dog my Tommy equals new dog, and then we say his name is Tommy. All right, and my Tommy has got age. We can set its age to something, and my Tommy can bark. Okay, so this is a variable. This is a function of dog on which we are calling that function. Okay, or let me call it bark instead of sleep. Okay, this sounds good. So my dog can bark it when it's hungry. It can go hungry and it can go to sleep. Okay, we can say, and we can ask the dog, asking, is he hungry? Okay, my tummy is hungry, and it will give us a boolean. Boolean says is hungry. Okay, so here we are saying that. Okay, I'm jumping a little too ahead, but uh, l- unless we tell it couple of times, you won't get the feel of it. So here we created a dog. Uh, Here we are trying to basically create a class called dog with all these parameters and attributes. Okay, we'll come back to this example again and again. Okay, so here it has to be boolean. Okay, so again, these are the method names of the class barking, hungry, and sleeping. These are the methods of the class. And boolean visitor, this one is basically a local variable inside the method. Similarly, these are called instance variable, which are part of the class. So these are the instance variable which are part of the class, okay, which are at the same level as class. And this variable which is inside the function is called local variable. All right, and this one at the top with the same name, the method which looks like which with the same name as class is the constructor. Okay, that we will come back to again. So are you guys good here? I know you are not. Okay, should we take a 5 minutes break or maybe 10 minutes break? Okay, so age, breed, color can be used in bark. Age, breed, color can be used in bark. Yes. Sleep and is hungry are functions. That is correct, Sushant. And bark is also functions. Yeah. So with respect to these functions, these are sort of global variables or instance variables. That's the correct way we put them. All right. So that's how a typical Java program would look like to you. There would be a class, there will be instance variables, then there will be methods, and then there will be a constructor. And optionally, there will be a main method which will be the entry point while running it. If you want to run a Java program from command line, because not all programs need to be run. Most of the programs would be like definition of some data type. Okay. So general strategy in writing these object-oriented programs is creating these data types which need to be used by the entry by various at various places. Yes. So by default, all of these variables can be used by all other. I mean, these are not public. They are called package. Anybody in the package can use them. Meaning, in your whole project, they can be used. People can access those variables. All right. Now, again, the same thing which I was describing just now. So you define the way an object is created is, I think let's take a break. Yeah. Let's come back. Be back at 9 or 10 p.m. IST. Break for 10 minutes. Right, I am back. Should we start now? Should we start now? Okay. I think other than V3, there is nobody else. I have a question. Till then, we can discuss those questions while other people join in. You don't have a question? Okay. So, all right. So Sushant's question is, what does void signify? Void means nothing. So every function needs to return something, and in case your function does not return anything, so any method, every method, whenever you create a method in programming languages, so a method takes something in the form of arguments and gives out in the form of return values. In case a function does not return anything, we call it void. So in our case, in main function does not return anything, and therefore we call it void. Okay, so this has not been discussed yet. So did you get the difference? Yes, boolean function in our example here, when we say boolean is hungry, see, you see the error. It says that the method must return something, and I say something. I just hard code a value saying every time people call is hungry function, it is going to return false, and it'll say true. So this particular pet is always hungry. Okay, so this pet is always hungry. Okay, you can see that. All right, so I think everybody has joined in. Should we start? Should we start with the normal discussion? I was just taking up questions when it was a break. So Nobody missed anything, nothing to worry. All right, so I'm starting now. So when you are create this way, in the previous slide, we described how to create a class by defining a class and adding methods to it. So we can call these methods on the instance of the class and then set the values and define the state. All right. So when you are creating an object of a class, generally you do it this way. You say your class name, then you give it any object name. It could be anything. Okay, it's that this is the only thing you own actually. Okay, and then you say equals to new, and then you call the constructor of the class. There is always a constructor. If there is not, Java gives it a default constructor. So constructor is basically a function which takes some arguments. You set the state, you set various kinds of variable as part of this. Okay, so declaration, we first declared our object saying my puppy is of type puppy. That is declaration. Instantiation, as in we said new, new, and then we called the constructor. Okay, so these are the steps which happen when we are trying to create an object. All right, are you guys with me? Any questions till here? Great. Now moving on. So how do you access instance variable or method? You created a class, you said this is my class name, this is my instance variable saying int puppy age. Basically we are trying to create a new kind of data type called puppy, in which there is a variable called puppy age, and then this is the constructor. It's constructor is like a function having a same name as the class. Okay, and it does something inside it, and then there is another function called set is. When we so the definition of set is something interesting. It says there's a method called set is. If you pass the, and it accepts the argument, and whatever argument you pass to it, it assigns it to puppy age. So whenever you will call this method set is, and whatever you pass here, it will be set to this variable. Okay, similarly when you have this method called get age here, this getAge is also a method on this class. So whenever you will be calling this method, it will return you something. Every method returns something. What is a method? Method is something like a individual function or a set of instructions which take an input and give out an output. Okay, although if somebody asks you definition of computer, you will also say the same thing. It has sort of a set of instructions, it takes an input and gives out output, right? So method is sort of a machine you can think about. It takes an input in the form of arguments and then returns one value, simple primitive value or complex value. Okay, so here it's just returning an integer. Public is a modifier, access modifier, saying that anybody can access this method. Okay, anybody can call this method. So we have public int and method name, and then we call it. All right. So when you're calling, you create another class, or you can actually add a main method in this class itself and start running it. Okay, here just for the sake of clarity, I've created another class called puppy caller, which has a main method, and this main method first creates an instance of your puppy. Okay, and you give it a name, and once you have given it a name, then this becomes your puppy. It has got a name, a different name from other somebody else's puppy, and then you have set an age here. And the moment you call, when you set age, you are setting this variable called puppy age, which is inside the class. And when you say get age, it will return this particular variable to you. Okay, so basically you can think of puppy as my puppy as a state, and you are setting its values and getting its values. Okay, so it's like a big box. This object is like a big box in which we are doing various kinds of operation, and we are putting the changing its states. Okay, changing states as in changing the content of it. All right, and then we are printing its value. So the value here, can somebody tell me what this value would be? So I'm saying my puppy dot puppy is basically I'm trying to access this value. What would be the value? This one? 2. Great, great. All right. So Seema's question is, what is the difference between puppy age equals to my puppy dot get age and my puppy dot puppy age? Okay, so here basically what's the difference between this instruction, sorry, this instruction, this line, and this line, right? So here we are basically calling get age here, and it's returning the same variable. So effectively there is no difference except for when you call this method, this will also be printed along with this. Okay. In case the standard way of using the general Java classes is you never let people access your variable. You always provide the getter setter method on top of variable so that you can do various kinds of check. So generally whenever people access getAge, so you never provide access to your private variables. You always provide access to your variables by the way of these functions, because you can always put various kinds of sanity checks here. Okay, you can always provide, basically, if you put a function instead of a variable, it gives you the more control. All right, so that's how you call a object. So what we did, we created the object here of our class. We created the object of our class, then set its variables, and then got its variables. So now this thing is behaving like a complex data type. All right. Now again, we are jumping. I mean, we are going. We are taking 2 steps back and defining how does our source file declaration looks like. A source file can have multiple classes, but out of all those classes, only one can be public. So we have this dog here, and we can define something called class dog caller, and then we can write something in it. Okay, but only one can become public. If I try to put it as public, it'll give error. Okay, now any public class you create, if you make it non-public and if you make it public, if I make it public, then I have to change the name of the file. Okay, change the name of the file in order to match this. Okay, now so let me try to change the name. You'll have to change the file name in order to match the public class name. Okay, okay, let me try to do caller. Okay, so we have got a question from Chandra. In all examples, I see that all class names are starting with capital letters and method function names are starting with the small letters. Is it just a coincidence or is there a defined standard in this case? Sorry if we have already discussed it. If you are okay, no, we haven't discussed it. Actually, I intentionally removed this part from the slides, but I think we should have discussed it. So you are free to keep the name as we discussed. You are free to keep the name whatever you want. Okay, but as a as a practice, as a practice, I mean, the way lots of people have been doing, the class name generally starts with capital. Okay, generally starts with capital. Example is you know, dog, or maybe let's say file system, or these are examples of valid examples of class name. And bad examples of class name, and also you can see that we haven't put a underscore in it. So everything has its own way. Every programming language has got its culture. So these are bad examples. Okay, also we do not put things like class underscore dog the way we used to do it in VB. We don't do it here. So these are the basically, although we are free to do this, these are not invalid, it's just that they are unconventional. Method names, on the other hand, as per the convention, they start with small, and we generally call them camel casing. Start with small letters and have camel casing. Okay, or another example would be here, like insufficient account balance error. Okay, so you can see that to differentiate between one word from another, we are using capitalization, and first letter is capital. Method name starts with a small letter and it looks more like a camel casing. Camel, and say for example, and always the method name looks like do something. Okay, like bark at strangers. This is one method name. This is a good example. And bark right away. Okay, is hungry since morning. These are the valid function names. Okay, so as per the convention, this is what we follow in case of Java. Okay, so you can just have a look at Java conventions. There is a good guidelines from Sun which follows the convention. All right. Thank you, Chandra, for bringing that up. So the file now Seema's question is, so the file name is always the public class name? Yes, that's correct. So always, because in every file there is a one public class, and okay, and we keep the name of that file. In case there is no public class in a file, then we just keep the one that is one class that is there in that file as the name of that file. Okay. All right. So was I able to answer your questions, Chandra and Seema? All right. So now there is something called Java package. When you have hundreds of classes and each class has to be in its, if there are hundreds of classes and all of them you want it to be public, then you are going to have a very tough time. Why? Because in case, first there will be too many files in the same folder. Second, no two files can have the same name, so we'll have tough time in case you are supposed to, you want to keep two files with the same name, two classes with the same name, then that's another difficulty in altogether. So the way you generally have in the beginning, when the operating systems were coined, there was only like two levels of directory structure, and people used to put files in those directories, and it used to be very difficult to organize your files. And after that, the directory structure was made sort of permanent. And in the same way, you have got packages. Packages are nothing but sort of directories inside Java code. Okay, so you create, at the top of the class you write a name of the package in the form of a.b.c, and this particular class, whose package name is a.b.c, is supposed to be residing in the folder called a/b/c, right? The way in our tutorial example here, the package name is tutorial. Okay, which means the it is supposed to exist in a folder called tutorial. All right. So it is optional to have a package name, and in case you do not have the package name, everything is considered as you don't have to specify at the top, and neither you have to create the directory. In case you are creating a package like my nice package, in those cases from the root folder you have to create a folder called my, then put another folder called nice, and then another folder inside that called package, and inside that you will create your class. Okay. Okay, the class which has the first line of this package. All right. So it's not only classes, there are other things which we will talk later, some things like interface. Interface is also like a class without a functions body. It only has declarations. So we'll talk about those again, but they also occupy a file, which means in case if you have a class and an interface with the same name, then there is no other choice than creating a package. Okay. Now then, whenever your class is going to use other libraries, for example, in our cases, we are using system.out to print out onto the screen the way we had import stdio.h. In the similar fashion, in the similar fashion, you have the import statement at the top of the class. Okay, these come just after the package class. These come just after the line containing the package line. Just after that, the import statement are there. Okay, so now this, let me remove this. So for example, in this, all right, let me, okay. Yeah, the way we have java.io.star, this is the package, this is the import statement. Sometimes your program might be emailing to people, and if you are coding with Hadoop, you will be using Hadoop's libraries. All of those have to be imported at the top of your class. Those are import statement. Because so, and in case you are just using the classes in the same package as the current file, then you do not require any import statement. Where do these packages reside when we import? Okay, so when we are launching a program, when we are launching a program using Java and a file name as we showed you, so when we are launching a program like my program dot this way in, and we want some libraries to be used by this program. In those cases, we define a command line argument called class path, and here we can give the folder name in which your programs are existing, or you can say semicolon a zipped file version. I mean, the archive of the classes folder. Either you can give folder name of my classes, whatever you have. This is the folder name. You can say folder name of my classes. Okay, and you can put a semicolon and then say the archive of the library dot jar. So this is the archive. Say for emailing, you have mail, uh, mailx.jar and so on. Okay, so this comes from a variable called class path. All right. So did I answer your questions? Okay. So we have again, we are moving a step back again. We talk about the variable types. A variable is defined like int a comma b comma c, and int a equals 10 comma b equals 10. In this case, a and b both are of data type integer and both are being initialized. Here we have not initialized, we have just declared them. Here we have initialized b with the value 22, and the data type of b is byte, and here the pi is a double decimal and it's a character. Okay, so basically a variable is a named storage, and a variable, when we define it this way, is in the memory. All of the primitives are loaded into the memory. Based on the data type, the size is decided, how much of the size it's going to consume, as well as the shape, how it's going to be stored is decided based on the variable type. And each variable has got access modifiers. Either they can be default, meaning these variables will be visible only inside your package. If they are marked as private, they are only visible inside the class. Okay. If the variable, basically, if you mark a variable of the class as public, then everybody can access it. The whole world can access it. If you mark it protected, then all the subclasses of the current class. So people can extend your class to add some more behavior to that. Only those people who are extending your class can access these variables. Okay. And in case you want to freeze your class so that nobody is able to extend, you can say final and nobody will be able to extend your class. If you mark static class, then the whole class is loaded only once. Sorry, static block, then that block is executed only once. And in case you define a static function, that function can be called without creating an instance on of a class. The way we called functions on our object called puppy, we first created the object of the class called puppy and then we called those methods. In case in case you want a function to be called without if you want a function to be called without creating an object of that class, you can mark that function static. Also, if you marking a variable as static, then no matter who calls it from which object, it keeps on increasing. Basically, static means the function or the variable belongs to the class, not to the object. All the objects of the class are going to see the same thing. Okay, they are all going to access the same variable if you mark a variable as static. Okay, generally when you're creating a new object of a class, you are basically creating a separate box, and you are whatever changes you make into this box is it all yours. But if you mark something static, whether it's a variable or a function, this always is always a single entity and always belongs to all the functions together. if if function if first object is making a change to a static variable, the same changes will be seen by other object as well of the same class. Seema says when we say import java.io, the classes in io are public or by default. Yes. Yes, so the classes in import java.io.star are public. And even if they are private, unless and until you try to access their private variable, it's not a problem. Okay. So arithmetic operators, we all have known the arithmetic operators since the BODMAS days. We have learned all the, you know, these rules on summation and multiplication. So say A equals to 10 and B equals to 20. What will be the value of this one quickly? And the second one? Percentage means percentage means the remainder when you divide something. Excellent. And this one? Minus minus means we are decreasing b by 1 before it comes out of this bracket. Okay. Immediately it will take an impact. The b's value will decrease by 1. Minus minus b takes it to 19. Into 1.0 makes it a decimal number. And when you divide 19 by 5, what is it going to be? It's going to be 3.8 probably. All right. So that it's not 3, that's why I've multiplied with the decimal number so that it becomes decimal. And when you divide a decimal number, so when you divide one integer by another integer, so if you say 30 by 20, the answer is going to be 1. Okay. But if you say 30.0 divided by 20, then it's a decimal number. All right. So everybody with me? Now, the best way to learn all of this arithmetic operator is by examples. Now there is something called relational operators. Relational operators means they are sort of comparison operators. So since equals, the single equals is for assignment. A equals 10 is not a condition, it's assignment. We are putting 10 into a variable called A. You can think of A as a small box and we are putting these 10 into that box, right? And B, we are putting 20 into this, and when we are comparing with our A equals to B, we don't say A equals B, we say equals equals. All right. So that's the difference between equals and double equals. Those who are coming from different programming languages, they'll get confused at this point a little bit. So in Python, in JavaScript, it's all equal equals twice. And in JavaScript, it is, I think, there are three equals also at places. Now, here, when you say A equals B, it is a condition. Either it will be true or false. So, do you think what is it going to be? False, right? And A not equals to B, it's true or false? Okay. So, can you just answer all of them together? Can you answer all of them together? So, Seema says false, true, false, true. Then we say A greater than or equal to B minus 10. Okay. The last one, do you think, Srivasant? Right, right. Excellent. So moving on. So that's what it is. Good. False, true, true. Good. All right. So that's a relational operator. Is everybody with me till this point? I might get, convinced that you understood, maybe because some of you might be coming from C++ background. Okay. So feel free to ask questions. It's okay to ask at any point of time. All right. Because my assumptions would be very different because I had been programming in the same language for quite some time. I might have built an impression then these are the things which are very obvious and I might skip. Okay, so feel free to ask, that will be helpful for the others also. All right, so A little bit complex part is bitwise operator, but these are very useful things. You should learn bitwise operator if you haven't done it earlier. Okay, thank you, Chandra, for that question. So, Chandra's question is, for Boolean comparison, do we have to use true, false, or is it okay to use 0 or 1? So, the answer is no. We cannot compare, we cannot say something like, we cannot say something like, is, okay, so in C, the 0 was false and non-zero was 1. Non-zero was true. Here that's not the case. Here, or even in case of JavaScript and other programming language, is that way. Now if you have, say, integer x equals 2, okay, and we want to say is x equals to, and or let's say 1, okay, and we here say 1. Okay, we are saying this, basically we are trying to say is x equals to true, right? So this will give you an error saying it's an invalid statement. You are trying to compare two different data types. Okay, or even the statement which you will see in the future, if statement saying if x equals to like this, it's an invalid statement. This is an invalid statement. Reason being that if will only accept the boolean value, not the integer value. Okay, so Java is little rigid with respect to that. All right, moving on. Now there is something called bitwise operators. Bitwise operators are nice operators in the sense that they are extremely efficient at doing few things. So let's take a case of bitwise operations here. Let's say A is 60, and when you create binary number out of it, or bits out of it, this is what it is going to be. Okay, so in case you are not into this, you can think of this way. First break down 60 into powers of 2 and replace 2 with 10, and when you again form the number, that is going to be the binary number. So if somebody has to count the number with 2 fingers, then that is the binary. If somebody has to count the number with 10 fingers, that is decimal, meaning each digit goes from 0 to 9 in case of a decimal before the next digit is incremented. In case of a binary, each digit goes from 0 to 1 before the next digit is incremented. Okay, so that's the big way, and I'm assuming that you will be able to convert a number into binary like this. Okay, so if you want to do A and B, meaning if you want to do bitwise AND operation, bitwise AND means same digit here, this digit 0 and 1 will be ANDed, and if both the numbers are 1, then you get the output as 1. Okay, here that's why it's 0. Same 0 0 0, then 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 0 1 0 0, and so on. So only at these two places both of these numbers have 1 in them. Okay, so that is bitwise AND operation. And OR operation is when either of the digit 0 and 1, either of the digit is 1. That is bitwise OR. Okay, XOR is when both are different. If both are same, the answer is 0. Say here 0 0 0 0, so its answer is 0. And here you can see that this is different, this is same, and so on. Okay, so when the digits in both the places are different, then it's 1, and if it's same, it's then 0. It's like your XOR is more like your, in your bedroom, if there are two switches, if you if you click any of those, the light turns on, right? So that's what it is. So if you change the first one, okay, so 0 1, okay, so if you think about that way, if you there are two switches, this switch and this switch, and that leads to the turning off on the light. So in case A switch was off, B switch was on, the light was on, right? Now what you did was you turned off this switch, which means it became 0 0. Then the light will turn off. XOR is those kind of operator, like in your bedroom, okay, where you have two switches. When you click on any of the switches and then light toggles. Not is when you inverse the value. So here this will become 1, this will become 1, these will become 0 0, these will become 0 0, and these will become 1s. So that's what it is. And shifting is towards the left or right, meaning all the numbers will get shifted towards the right, and the places which have been created on the right hand side, zeros will be filled in those. Okay, so here I'm just shifting it by 1. So space is created for one of the value. Okay, the physical significance of shifting to the left is we are multiplying a number by 2. This is the easiest way to multiply a number by 2. So A was 60. The moment you shift it to the left, it becomes 120. If you shift the number by to right, it gets divided by 2. Okay, let's have a look at this. Okay, so where is our hello world? So let's say we have got 60 and my number is 60, and I say number shift by 1. Okay, so you can see the answer is 120. If you shift it by further 2, the answer will become 240, which means again it's multiplied by 2. If I divide by, if I shift to the right hand side, meaning one of the, okay, so digits are shifted to the right, the number gets divided by 2. So there are a lot of things which you could do with bitwise operator, but in today's time, people hardly use a bitwise operator to do things, unless of course during interviews. Okay, now, okay, so ampersand is a logical operator, just like we had equals equals. Similarly, uh, there are logical operators like and or. And says if two conditions are true, the whole condition will become true. If either of the condition is false, and those two conditions are joined by and, then the whole condition, uh, sorry, if there are two conditions and we want to combine them, we want to say that if color is red as well as the the time is 2 o'clock, then do this. Okay, so in those cases we used ampersand. So if 4 by 2 equals to 2, this is True or false? Quick, quick. True. And this is false. Okay. And when you put ampersand in it, what does it become? False. Perfect. And similarly, you have these conditions. So this is true, this is false, and this is true or false. So overall condition will result you the true. Perfect. Now the assignment operators, there are other than equal, a equals to 10, you can sum up things and assign as well. So a plus equals to 20, or a divide equals to 10, and so on. These are the assignment operators. Okay. Also note that assignment operators are not atomic in nature. Okay. Meaning, in case multiple threads are running and they are all changing a value, this is not, they won't happen in a single step. Okay. That's why Java has provided a set of different, primitives which make that thread safe happen. All right. So, okay, let me ask you this. So, anybody with the last value? Last value? Last value is sufficient. So, we start with top. Okay. Sushant says, okay, this one, okay, everybody is having different values. Okay, go ahead. So, here A is how much? 10 plus 20, 30. Then we are saying A equals to A plus 20, which means 30. Then we are saying A equals to A divided by 30. Okay. This is essentially equivalent to A equals to A divided by 10. All right. And this is equal to A equals to A into A equals to A multiplied by 12. And this is A equals to A percentage or modulo 10. All right, that's correct. Good, good. Then, similar to C, we have a conditional operator. A conditional operator is very useful, and it's good to convert a if condition into a single line. It says that when this condition is true, then use this value, otherwise use this value. So if A equals to 1, which is false in this case, so B will become 30. And if A equals to 10, then in this case the B will become 10. Okay. So the value of B is 30 and the value of B is 20. That is the output in this case. Okay. All right. So here is a little challenge for you. So just like we studied baud mass, as in, what was the full form of baud mass? Brackets, and then first one was brackets, and then what was the O for? then was division, O for something I forgot. Okay, so never mind that. Similar to those rules, here are the rules. Almost everything, first, there are two things. First, there is an order of precedence of the operators. Okay, and in case there is a tie, as in if there are in a condition, if is multiplication as well as division, okay, there are multiplication as well as division, then we start counting from left to right. Which one comes left is multiplied first. Okay, so in case there is a tie, for example, in this case 2 into 3 divided by 2, so the associativeness is from left to right, which means this will happen first and then whatever is the result will be divided by 2. Okay, so the answer would be yes, that's correct. So same is the case with all of these. The associativeness comes into picture when you have operators of the same precedence. Okay. Along with that, you need to think about other aspects also. If you are assigning things, then associativeness is from right to left. Okay, right to left, meaning in case of assignment, A equals to B equals to C. So C gets evaluated first, then B, and then A. Okay. Similar is the case of conditions. Out of conditions, there are three things. So the value on the rightmost one is evaluated first, then the next, then the next. And same is the case with unary. For rest of the things, it is from left to right. All right. So can somebody help me with this? This is 3, okay, and this is 2, yes. This is here you can see this is of lower precedence and this is of higher and this is further higher. No, these are both same. So first this will be computed from left to right. This will be 1 and 1 into 4 is 4 and then summation will happen and 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay. Here again, plus is of lower precedence and then is a higher and then both of these are same and hence this will be minus 1. In this case, okay, in this case you need to have a look at this chart. Here logical OR is below equality, which means this will be done first and then logical OR will be performed. So this will become true and this will become what? 1. And one more thing, the division happens later on. Okay, here. Okay, that also happens before. Okay, and equals is higher up, so equals is going to be performed earlier than the OR, which is false. And actually similarly here this is going to be 2 and then these 2 equals to 2 is true, and now we have got this. Okay, so true or false and true. Okay, and here you can see that the AND will be performed first, which means this is going to be false, and then will come the logical OR, and the result is true. All right. So is everybody convinced about what exactly am I trying to do here? I'm trying to explain it because that was the only part which I got confused with when I was learning all of this. All right. All right. So we will start with loops tomorrow. Okay. We'll start with loops tomorrow and then we will move further. Okay. So yeah, there is a difference in that priority order actually. So Seema's question is that we thought that these are of equal priority, but as per this chart, AND is higher or is lower. So in a condition, AND will be performed before OR if there is a tie. All right. Thank you very much. I'll send you the survey for this session. Please fill that survey. Okay. Or maybe Anjana will send you. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye bye.